Everyone, I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have 7 board members present. I will take a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. That brings us to item 3A, the public hearing for resolution 2024-12, exceeding the revenue neutral rate to finance the USD253 2024-2025 budget.
Okay, this is Pam Stranathan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, and also Mrs. Kate Cape, Director of Business, here to present on the budget.
So this is the hearing section. There's not a lot for me to discuss during this portion of it. This is where we wait to see if there's anybody from the community.
If there's anyone from the community that would like to speak, now is the time. Okay. So we are ready to do the roll call vote.
I move to adopt Resolution 2024-12, authorizing the exceeding of the revenue neutral tax rate to finance the USD 253 2024-2025 budget as submitted, and close the hearing.
Second.
All right, this is going to be a roll call vote, so I'm just going to mention each of yours name. Please say yay or nay. Lillian Linkenfelter. Yay. Jamie Reaver.
Yay.
Jennifer Thomas. Yay. Leslie Seeley. Yay. Jeremy Dorsey.
Yay.
Art Gutierrez.
Yay.
Grant Riles.
Yay.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, so we will do the next public hearing for the USD 253 2024-2025 budget.
We need to hold for just about 2 minutes on
Sorry,
this one.
Casey. You told me. Okay, we're ready now for item 3B, public hearing for the USD 253 2024-2025 budget.
And once again, at this time, this is an opportunity for the public to step forward and to ask questions or to give their opinion.
Are there any public comments on this? Okay.
I move to close the public budget hearing for the 2024-2025 USD 253 budget.
I second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, the next item is 3C, Annual Resolution 2024-13 to establish maximum local operating budget percentage for the 2024-2025 USD 253 budget.
So this goes back to when it was passed initially, the boards had to elect to go up to 33 and to hit that max. And so there was a time period when you didn't have to vote every year, and then the requirement came out in 2021 to where every year now the board has to vote. Just to share, just to be transparent, is our LOB is at 29.9, the state average is at 32, and the maximum is 33. So we have stayed well below that to keep our mill levy at below the 55.
I move to approve Resolution 2024-13 to establish 33% as the maximum local operating budget percentage for the 2024-2025 USD 253 budget as submitted.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, and the next item in this set of budget items is the adoption of the USD 253 budget for 2024-2025.
And just to recap that one from the last board meeting was to just share a little bit again in reference to that our enrollment that we had gone up from 4129 to 4300, in which we put in there to be adopted into the budget. And with that increase, along with the state base aid, which went from 5080 to 5378, we were looking at potentially $2 million more dollars coming into the district, in which we have already planned for, and we had put that into when we did negotiations for it to go towards the salaries for the staff in the district. So excited about that, and those salaries went across to everybody in the district, not just to certified. So those were the things. So we're looking at a $41 million budget to approve tonight, and that is the max. And hopefully with the numbers that we put in there, now it depends, remember, on our audit, and if the weightings come back like they did this year with our special education ones and some of the others, it could have us to go back and have to republish. We're hoping not. Republishing is not a bad thing because it gave more funding back into our budget. So.
I move to adopt the 24-25 USD 253 budget as submitted.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone in the business office that's been working on this.
Thank you.
Okay, we are ready for item 4A, public comment. Anyone wishing to provide public comments should complete the request to submit comments form online. This form will need to be completed by 1 p.m. on Wednesday, the day of the board meeting. Casey, is there any public comment?
We do not have any tonight.
Thank you. Okay. The next item is the consent agenda. The items listed on the consent agenda are considered by the Board of Education to be routine business items. Approval of the items may be made by a single motion, second, a majority vote with no separate discussion of any item listed. Should a member of the board desire to discuss any item at his or her request, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. What are the wishes of the board?
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
And as always, a big thank you to our generous donors and congratulations to our grant recipients. We are so appreciative of the people in our community that go out of their way to support our schools. Thank you. Okay, item 7A, PSYOP, Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol Presentation.
All right, we are excited about this highlight. So we have Dr. Erica Mickelson, Director of Teaching and Learning, and we have a number of presenters from Riverside and the middle school, and Jones.
Yes, thank you for having us this evening. We are going to be talking about PSYOP. So PSYOP meets the following board goals: improve academic achievement for all students, and also provide instructional resources and professional development to meet ever-changing diverse needs of our students and staff. And PSYOP itself is Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol, and we are excited to have it back. It was in our district a number of years ago, and so through some discussion across the district-wide, and listening to the needs of staff and families, teachers, everyone, we decided to bring it back. And we have a wonderful group behind me that is going to talk about a little about what's happening in the classrooms and out in the schools. So what is PSYOP? Just a little recap, it is research-based, and it really is the instruction, what's happening in the classroom. It's not something that's separate, and it's not a separate resource that teachers would need to have. It really is, they really are those tried and true research-based practices that can help all students. They also help English language learners, especially because of the academic language and the use of different vocabulary and that focus on supporting English language learners. But like I said, it helps all and supports all students. And we are very excited to have the first wave of that learning this year, and I'll talk a little bit about that professional development timeline in a little bit. The other things are making sure that we are really looking at the academic language that we are using in the classrooms and making it accessible to all students and making sure that we have that age-appropriate level for the vocabulary and language development of all of our students. We also are using the information and planning framework that is used in PSYOP and making sure that that is in place in all of our classrooms. And I'm going to hand it off to a couple of the teachers behind me, and they're going to talk a little bit about specifics with PSYOP.
All right, I'm going to talk to you about the lesson prep and building background. For lesson prep, it consists of having content and language objectives that are clearly defined, displayed, and reviewed with students before, during, and at the end of lessons. We're incorporating concepts appropriate for the age and educational background of the students. And supplemental materials are used to a high degree to make the lessons clear and meaningful for students, and incorporating meaningful activities that integrate lesson concepts with language opportunities for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. For building background, concepts need to be explicitly linked to the student's background experiences. Focusing on student assets, teachers use what students know and have experienced as conduits for language literacy and content learning. Make explicit links between past learnings and new concepts. We can do this by comparing yesterday's objectives to today's objectives, reviewing previously learned vocabulary and content that was taught the day before. And then key vocabulary is emphasized by being introduced in lessons, written, repeated, and highlighted for students to see.
Each of the components of PSYOP also have different features built in. So looking at the comprehensible input component has 3 features within that. So one of the features is speech appropriate for students' proficiency levels. So PSYOP teachers constantly modulate and adjust their speech to ensure that the content is comprehensible for all students. And that's really good for all students, not just our ELL learners, and making sure that there is a clear explanation of the tasks and techniques that make information understandable. Another feature under comprehensible input is clear explanation of those tasks, giving step-by-step instructions and going at their pace to make sure that everybody's understanding, making sure that modeling and demonstrating the task for students is happening. The next feature is a variety of techniques used to make content concepts clear. So teachers are using a lot of the modeling, hand gestures, hands-on activities, and demonstrations so that students understand and taking the language and putting it with what's happening in the classroom. And then the next component is strategies. Feature 13 under strategies is making sure that students have ample opportunities provided for students to use learning strategies. We know that learning is made more effective when teachers actively assist students in developing a variety of learning strategies, such as cognitive, metacognitive, language-based, and socio-affective. Those learning strategies promote self-monitoring, self-regulation, and problem-solving abilities. Another feature is scaffolding. It's imperative that all teachers provide sufficient scaffolding, including verbal supports such as paraphrasing, frequent repetition and opportunities to clarify in their first language, procedural supports such as teacher modeling with think alouds, one-on-one teaching, and opportunities to work more with experienced individuals or groups. And then the last feature under that is a variety of questions or tasks that promote higher order thinking skills. So making sure that we're holding them also to high accountability and planning for those higher order thinking skills for all students.
Hi, Andy Hawley from the middle school. I've actually been in the district for a really long time, so this is like my second tour with SIOP. And I'm glad that everybody's mentioning how it's like best practice and good for all kids. There's a lot of stuff the second time that I went through that I was like, oh, that's where I got that. So it really does help everybody. I'm going to talk to you guys about interaction and just how important that is, giving students the opportunity to be able to communicate with each other. It gives them a chance to use their vocabulary that we're learning in school. It lets them use that kind of in sentences and just the importance of that. And I know it's good for all kids, but it's definitely critical for like second language learners. It also, I think, lowers the affective filter. A lot of times students might have that information but be a little nervous about sharing it. When you give them the chance to kind of communicate that with maybe some smaller groups and stuff, then they're ready to communicate it, I think, with larger groups as well. I know I use it a lot for think, pair, share. So have them kind of develop their answer and then sort of pair up and be able to share it with another kid and then be able to share it with the whole class. I found it to be really effective. As far as practice and application, this is really talking about the opportunity that you give students every day to use their knowledge while also reinforcing those verbal skills. So one of the things I know that we were talking about in our training is making sure that kids have the opportunities to read, write, listen, and speak every single day in every single class, which seems like, hey, that's a no-brainer, but sometimes, you know, in the whirlwind, you kind of forget about things. So it really puts it to front of mind. And to me, this is really important because it's the difference between having knowledge and then being able to express that knowledge that they have. And what a critical piece that is for all students, but like I said, it's really critical for second language learners. So.
Hi, I'm Heather Rios. I teach English as a second language at Emporia High School. I'm going to be speaking about lesson delivery and review and assessment. The lesson delivery, we make sure that the activities are supporting the objectives and the standards that the state of Kansas has set forth. And the benefit of that is we're setting up these expectations of what we want the kids to learn, and we also refer back to those objectives throughout the lessons, and we actually make those students a part of those objectives by having them read them. And then we go back to it again, and then when we go review the lesson, then we will ensure that we are actually reaching those objectives, and we'll put a check mark as a visual. Then the benefits of that, like I said, are we set those pacing. When we follow those objectives, we are giving them time that they need to go back and relearn, or if we feel like that they're getting it, then we can move forward. Now, one of the things, like I said before, is making sure that those objectives are visible so they can refer back to them throughout the lesson. And then once again, going back throughout the lesson and making sure that they are following those objectives. And I'm actually following those objectives because sometimes, like now, you go on a tangent and then you have to remember that we need to refocus back onto our lesson. A review and assessment. We have both formative assessments and the summative assessments. The formal assessments are key because what you do is you go through, you may do an interview with the student. You may have them speaking with each other with teacher observation, Quizlets, Kahoots, and you're looking to see if these kids are understanding the content. If they're not, we go back, we reteach. If you feel like they are, we can move forward. And then at the end of it, you have the summative assessments, and that is where you're going to find out what they learned overall over those concepts. You can do that through final presentations. You can do, of course, unit tests. Oral presentations. And the one thing I do want to say is that we are ensuring that we're using all 4 domains of language, the reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
So some of the things, now we're ready, Casey, thank you. So how will this help our teachers and our students? And you heard from the educators behind me, there's many ways. They explained many ways and expressed them, but really making sure the instruction is accessible to our students, improving, like we said, vocabulary. You heard vocabulary many times during their discussions of all those things, making sure that they have that development of academic language, because the language that they use at home that we use outside of school is just different. So making sure when they're with us that we make that academic language accessible to them. That student participation is very important. And then the objectives piece that Heather just mentioned is critically important as well. We also are making sure that we are providing those academic conversations and allowing students to talk with each other. It's not just teachers talking at students. And then wait time. Wait time is always really hard. It's hard for everybody, and it is hard for teachers as well. So making sure that they are providing that ample wait time and they're not just moving on to that next thing. And then making sure that we have that instruction based on students' strengths and needs, and always having that in our mind as we teach throughout the units. And then I'm going to have Michelle speak about the professional development that has happened already.
Hi, I'm Michelle Young from Jones Early Childhood. I teach 4-year-olds at the preschool level, and our district has been working really hard with having PDs available to all our staff in order to move forward with SIOP. And I know that every building has been seeing the great growth from these opportunities, and we're going to continue having professional development this year and next year to help learn more about SIOP and how we can incorporate it into our daily strategies and tasks with our students.
So we talk about timeline, and for the rest of this year, so last year we had our administrators trained first, so they were trained in November. Then over the summer, this group behind me were a few of the people that got to join me for a week, and that was when we really just learned everything there was to know about SIOP and became those teacher leaders. And we will do this. This will be a 2-year process. We are also in the spring of this year going to have our instructional coaches. They're going to have more intensive learning on SIOP, and that'll be in the spring after spring break time. And we're excited about that. And I actually was on the phone with the folks from the SIOP, just making sure that we had all of those things in place, and they're determining who that instructor is going to be that'll come and give us that training. And then as far as district-wide, so you can see our timeline, we have a 2-year phase for this because it's a lot. And we also have other things like capturing kids' hearts and other areas that we need to spend that time and dedicate PLT to as well as building level needs and things that are just needed throughout the year. So we are going to be getting 5 sessions in this year, and you can see the estimated time there. I will tell you that the sessions don't take that much time. They err on giving you a little bit more just for wiggle room. And a lot of the buildings have already done either at least 1 session, if not 2. And then the expectation is just throughout the year, they get those 5 sessions in. And there's no expectation at a certain time you have to be there throughout the year. It's just by the end of the year, we need to have 5 sessions in. Then next year, we will get the rest of the sessions in, leading from session 6 all the way to 12. And then we will set up a process and a plan that's part of what the instructional coaches will do in the spring of how do we make sure and ensure that the rest of the years when we have new staff come in, that they really get the learning that they need when they join us. We don't want it to be something that we are hitting heavy for these next 2 years, and then when people come in, they miss out on it or get it just a little bit. We want to make sure that they get the full knowledge and learning that they need. So we will set that up with the instructional coaches during that spring professional development time. So questions? Any questions you have for either myself or this wonderful group behind me?
So the professional development, do those take place professional development days? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, during PLT time, and that was part of the work that this group, the teacher leader group did for SIOP, was they went back and worked with their administrator to determine when throughout the year is that going to take place. So that's set up throughout the year, and then I will touch base with administrators and just make sure, what do you need? Do you need any support? I am actually supporting Jones Early Childhood Development. I'm the one that gets to present to that staff, so I'm doing it too. I'm doing the training as well, and so I have a schedule for them when I'm going out to do those presentations.
Well, thank you for doing this presentation. Thanks to everybody for coming to share this with us tonight. My question pertains to kind of what you were just saying about the PLT time and the other initiatives that we have going on. How are we supporting teachers and balancing all of these initiatives? And like we heard, we've done this before, and now we're doing it again, which is that's cool. If this is what's working for our students, I want us to do what's best practices for them. But how are we helping our teachers, particularly our new teachers, balance all of our initiatives?
So we have, every new teacher has a mentor, and then we also have our instructional coaches, and those groups are really there to support the teachers. Many of our instructional coaches were a part of the teacher leader group, the SIOP group. Those that couldn't attend that actually attended the administrator training, so they had that information. So we are relying heavily on especially the teacher leaders at every building, because we have at least 2, if not more, at some of our bigger buildings, teachers trained in that. And so making sure that they're available and they're there to help and support, but then also making sure that during those that we do have that PLT time determined and set. And again, that's what the teacher leaders behind me, that was one of their jobs with their building administrator, to make sure that that time was set and determined at the building level.
Thanks for asking that, because I sort of had a similar question. And so I guess, what's that saying, what's old is new again, or something?
The pendulum, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So a few years ago, I take it, we decided to phase out SIOP, and now we're bringing it back. Did we decide to replace SIOP with something else in the middle years and then add SIOP back? I guess my question is, to use another phrase, sometimes when you put one brick in, you got to take one out. So I think getting deeper into Lillian's question, how are we making sure that it's just not too much?
Right. So I think one of the things in the past, when there was SIOP in place, there was also Lit First, and the idea was behind Lit First. One of the ideas was that could take place of SIOP, and that it would would fix it all, or it would help and support it all. And we found out that is not necessarily the case. It's good, and it's good practice, but there were some things that maybe Lit First didn't have as part of that process or that resource that we brought in. The other thing is just making sure as teachers and educators that we know that focus on vocabulary is good for all students. So making sure that we always bring that to the forefront. And I loved when Andy said, you know, like he loves that he's learning, and some of the things that he did learn then he put into practice and then maybe forgot that that's where he learned it from. And so making sure that we are bringing that back up to teachers of saying, this is best practice, and we just need to keep doing this and keep having that be the focus of what we do and how we do things. And it's in a lot of things. It's in research from Marzano. It's in research from Dr. John Hattie. You know, I mean, there are a lot of different components in SIOP that are in multiple areas. So again, just making sure that teachers don't think that it's a separate thing. In the future, in a couple board meetings, I'll bring back the instructional protocol that we've created to really show how this isn't just one more thing. It fits in with CKH, it fits in with Lit First, and it really meshes together really well. And that was a part of our discussion in June, was how it all just feeds into each other and works really beautifully, and helping teachers see that it's not just one more thing.
Thank you.
Yes.
The only question I have is, you were all recommended by your administrators, and so you got to participate. Has there been anyone else who's like, oh man, I really wished I'd gotten a chance to be in that PSYOP training, or were you the sacrificial lambs, you know, like, right? I'm sure you were very eager, but also, you know, willing to give up that time. I just wondered if you've had anybody else who was like, oh, that would have been excellent for me, and then maybe next summer I'll get to do that. No, it's okay.
We had some aha moments, because one of the activities that we did that I really, really enjoy, and being an ESL teacher, it's like, I'm not really sure who said it, but they said it's good for all students, because obviously we have students that are in foster care, students that live in poverty, ELL students. We have so many different groups of kids coming to us, and they need this, because we just assume if you're a first language English speaker, you're going to get it. But what we don't realize, one of my kids was born in 2008, the big recession, right? And people were trying to survive, and so they put their kids in front of a TV or on a tablet. And so they weren't necessarily interacting with their kids, and so those kids weren't necessarily getting the vocabulary that they needed. And so we just assume that they are, and they're not. So this is really good for them and for everybody. And I did PSYOP a long time ago with Willie Smiley. And so when they brought it back, I was very excited. I was a little nervous about fitting everything in, but then we had a visual showing how it all pieced together. So that put my mind at rest. And but we did this assignment about assets, or reframing. And so instead of saying those kids, oh, they're lazy, okay, what is something that we could do to make this a positive? And so just instead of assuming they're lazy, which no one said anyone was lazy, but just assuming that they're lazy, maybe, just maybe, they're very intimidated because they've never been in this situation before. Or maybe something happened that morning and they're not doing well. And so we just have to reframe that, saying, okay, you feel like you're a little challenged today? That's okay, we'll work through it. So that was one of the activities that we did that SIOP put forth, is learning how to view our students differently.
Thanks for sharing.
Your question was, will other people want to? I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Megan Powers, and this year I'm the instructional coach at Riverside and William Mountain White. So we've had for a very long time now a lot of teachers asking for things. What can you give me? What do you have that can help me with these kids? I don't know what to do. And so this was our perfect opportunity to bring this to them. And not a lot of people were jumping out there saying, hey, I want to go to this summer, this summer training. But now that we're giving this to them and they're taking it in small chunks and being able to digest it and then put it into practice, I feel like they're very thankful and they're receiving it well, because it's something that we can give them to help them for all kids, but specifically those kids. Does that help?
I love hearing that. Thank you so much.
I would be remiss if I didn't say congratulations to Mr. Hawley for being one of our Kansas Teacher of the Year nominees. And also Mrs. Sparks, too.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, we are ready for item 8A, the construction update from McCowan Gordon.
All right. Mr. Eric Holtze, McCown Gordon, Senior Project Manager, is back for an update on William Allen White.
Good evening. So, similar to every board meeting, we've kind of started with the schedule, which everything is still tracking. Things have actually gone really well at William Allen White. I don't want to jinx anything, but we're hopeful that the new addition will be able to turn over a little bit earlier to the school, and then we'll be left with some miscellaneous renovations and some of the additional items that were added, like the roofing and some additional rooftop units. So this summer, still same goal is to be out of there by the end of next summer and have everything turned back over so that we can get back to some normalcy at William Allen White. So, Casey, if you want to go to the second.
Before you move on, I just want to say it's really weird to only see one school on our chart.
Yes.
Really weird.
I agree.
It's a great thing.
It is. It's been a long time coming, right? But it's, a lot of progress has been made over really going on 4 years. If you think back, is we started the very first project in October of 2020. So, and everybody remembers what 2020 brought. So I won't go on that soapbox, but so the photos you see here, that upper left corner is really, it's going to be the new main corridor that ties in the old part of the school into the new addition. So that's a long open corridor. You got some exit doors there that you see, and then some windows to allow that natural light in. The right picture on the upper screen is just kind of a snapshot of the new addition. So right there you see the air barriers on, the moisture barriers on. So we are technically in the dry. The lower left corner is actually the roofing membrane that's on that new addition. So we're in the dry. The brick has not shown up. That was a special run. HGK has done a really good job across the district of matching a lot of the brick colors throughout the years of construction that those buildings were built. So this color for William Allen White was actually a special run. So it's scheduled to show up the middle of October. So as soon as it shows up, we will actually start on the south side. That's the north side that you see there in that upper right-hand picture. But we'll start on the south with the brick and just kind of work our way around the building to the north. And then as soon as we get the south done with the brick, we'll start the site work to finish up the utilities and everything and continue to just chase that brick around. That lower right-hand photo is actually of the new band room, so you have a lot of nice natural daylight there with a door and all that storefront there, the windows that you see. Some other things going on the inside is actually prime and first coat of paint has been completed, so in the process of starting ceiling grid in a bunch of the areas in the new multi-purpose area. The frames for the acoustical panels are all up on the walls, so hopefully within the next week or two, we'll start putting those acoustical panels up. Light fixtures will start in that multi-purpose room shortly as well. Last week, we had a 50% walkthrough with the state fire marshal, and everything passed with flying colors, so that was good news. And prior to turnover, we'll have them back out to do one final walkthrough of the space. Doing some trim out of overhead in the kitchen prior to the ceiling grid starting in there, and just trying to get everything wrapped up above ceiling, then ceiling grid will start there. And then we've started the process actually on the new addition of the rooftop unit startup. So by the end of this week, hopefully they'll be up fully operational and running. So it's kind of a quick snapshot of where we're at with William Allen White. Any questions? Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks.
Okay. Item 8B is the refurbishing of the Emporia High School greenhouse.
All right, well, we have Ms. Pam Stranthan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, helping organize this. Mr. Nathan Fisher, Principal. Ms. Brenda Kerner, CTE, Biology Teacher at EHS, and Mr. Matt Irby, Department Head and Biology Teacher.
And I'm not going to talk long. I just want to say this is an exciting project. It just complements everything else that we've been doing over there. So I'm going to turn it over to Dathan and let him introduce and do the PowerPoint.
All right, good evening, everybody. We have with us this evening Matt Irby, which many of you probably know. He's the department chair at the high school. And Dr. Kroner, she is one of our biology teachers, and she teaches plant and soil science. This has been kind of a long time coming. With McCown Gordon and the construction we did at the high school, we did make some improvements around the greenhouse area. And then we had to go offline a little bit when COVID and different things came. We're now back to a point with Dr. Kerner in the building that she's really taken this on. She's very intelligent about greenhouses. She has a lot of experience with the plant pathway in our building, but also, through teaching at Emporia State and what she did up there for their program. And so last year was her first year to be able to be in the greenhouse, and I kind of told her, I said, just use it, see what you think, see what happens, right? And she came to me pretty quickly and said, we have some work to do. So we've been kind of planning for this to happen at some point, we hoped. So financially, we're at a point where I've been able to save some money back and hopefully, get this to go through with you all. But Matt's going to talk about the history of the greenhouse, and then Brenda will talk about, what the renovations need to be in order to get it caught up to speed with how can we meet the pathway needs, but also grow the program at the high school.
Hello. So I started teaching in the fall of 2004. Greenhouse was built in 2002, so it was about 2 years old when I first started teaching. Most of you know John Harkrode. He was the one that kind of got that greenhouse built, and he taught botany out there for a long time. And then when he retired, Frances Wecker took over. And after she retired and moved, we had different teachers try to teach some of those classes. Amy Jenkins and had some others kind of get thrown in the fire to see what they could do with it, Martha McKay and Cheyenne Morgan. As Mr. Fisher said, when they started construction, they had to cut the power off. We had some pipes burst that first winter. And so for a year and a half, it was not being used because of construction around it. So as classes have been getting back with Dr. Kerner, as we'll see and show you, most of the systems are not working very well. We can go to the next slide. So somewhere around 2018, science curriculum changed to really emphasize our different pathways. And so our ag pathway, initially Amy Jenkins was our animal and our plant person. She had 6, 7, 8 preps, so it was tough on her, and plant management isn't her forte. She was a vet tech person. So as we were lucky enough to get Dr. Kerner last year, she'll talk about some of the classes that she's currently teaching and some of the limitations with what we have.
Thank you, Matt. So this pathway, really we have to offer 3 courses for students to be able to complete the pathway. They take Intro to Agriculture, Plant and Soil Science, and the only application level course that we're offering at the moment at the high school is greenhouse management. So it is pretty critical to have a functional greenhouse. Next slide, please. So what we've done, even with, when I showed up at the greenhouse, it really wasn't a greenhouse, it was a brown house. So there wasn't anything green in that greenhouse. We spent some time with my students cleaning it up, and just last year we were able to raise somewhere in the vicinity of 1,000 plants. And our very first plant sale, I only had 4 students in greenhouse management last year, so I expect this program to grow. I've had a lot of interest this year. We raised over $1,400 just in our very first year. This year, I started a greenhouse club, which will also utilize the space. Just during our Jumpstart, I had 40 students sign up who had interest in it. So I think there's a lot of room for expansion and utilization for this structure. As part of the pathway goals, last year we had to renew our pathway goals. So obviously we want to increase the number of students in the pathway, and I think having a functional structure where they can see what's happening around the building and they hear from other students what's happening in that space, they'll obviously be a lot more interest in that pathway. We also want to increase business and community partnerships. Last year, one of my courses, we actually had already 7 different job shadow locations throughout the community. So as the number of students grow, we expect that connection with the community to increase. We'd like to increase the production capacity of the greenhouse to offer more to the community, both for community service projects as well as for other capacities. So there also is the possibility for producing outdoor plant structures in that space. That doesn't require the greenhouse specifically, but once the greenhouse is functional and running and operating smoothly, we can expand into the space that is surrounding it. In the greenhouse, there is an aquaponics system. It is dismantled at the moment. That can be put together. We've got to do there's only one of me. So as soon as the greenhouse is functioning well, we would like to get the aquaponics system going, and that's something that we could use to grow produce either for the school or for teachers at the school. So I'm not sure we can have the capacity to provide for the cafeteria. But we could obviously produce some products for students to take home. So next slide, please. So what do we have? So what's the current state of the greenhouse? What's good and what's functional is the structure itself. It's a very solid structure. It's a great greenhouse structure. It's got good bones. It's got a great bench setup. So we have the structure there. And the covering, as you can see, there's no holes in it, but it's in the process of deterioration, which you have to see kind of close up. So that affects energy efficiency and the heat holding capacity of the greenhouse in the winter. We're already 5 to 7 years past the expected lifespan of the outer covering, the greenhouse covering. So I think you've already got a pretty good bang for your buck on the covering so far. Next slide, please. Oh, back one, sorry. No, next. Oh, I think oh, yes, so next slide. No, there you go. So, what's sort of working? We have water, so we can water plants. We have a covering. We don't have holes in the covering. Obviously, it does need to be addressed somewhat soon. It wouldn't have to be this year, but it might as well, since everybody's going to be coming to work on other structures. The evaporative cooler is functioning. One of the issues with it is the control system is not operating it. So the only way it's operating right now is I manually open the vent, and it's on a timer when to turn on and when to turn off. So nothing's being controlled by greenhouse conditions, which is really what should be happening in a greenhouse. So next slide. What doesn't work? Well, for that evaporative cooler to function well, we need exhaust fans, and those exhaust fans are not operational, so the two fans that you see on the side. Right now, in order to have any ventilation in the greenhouse, we have a cart with a fan sitting in the door, and the door has to stay open pretty much 24/7 at the moment, which is obviously not ideal. So next slide, please. Other things. So this image, it's almost 120 degrees in the greenhouse. This was taken during class only about 2 weeks ago. Obviously, that's not really great conditions to have students in. So we pretty much get done what we need to get done in there and get right back out. Also, plants aren't very happy at 120 degrees. I've managed to keep things alive in there during the summer, but that's really about it. So other things that really don't work, the automated watering system was ripped out, so some of those pipes that you see in the rafters, kind of hard to see in that middle image, we actually have the automatic watering system, or the remnants of it, in the rafters of the greenhouse. This summer also, so on the right hand image is the controller that operates all of the systems in the greenhouse, or at least a number of the systems. It got so hot out there that it actually burned out that controller. So, next slide. So what's being proposed? An automated watering system. Students are spending around 25% of their time in greenhouse management just watering plants. In the industry, that process is automated. So I really should be teaching them how to run the automated watering system rather than how to use a hose. So grow lights, we have sufficient light to grow plants, but we really don't have sufficient light to start seedlings. You need supplemental light. So we'd like to set up several stations, several benches with grow lights that can be turned on and off as needed for production. Heat mats are needed for seeds, so we'll have several propagation stations added. A new controller. So this is an upgrade from the control system that is currently there. Instead of having multiple controllers for multiple systems, this is a one-stop shop for control. In addition, new polycarbonate sidewalls and roof. It's kind of overdue. We don't have holes yet, but there's definitely cracks in the wall, in the polycarbonate that exists, so it's only sort of a matter of time. What this proposal from Steppe Greenhouse also includes, which I think is a really critical component to include, is training, how to operate the new system. So it will be training for myself as well as other faculty in the department, because I might have a car accident and not be able to show up for work for a month. So somebody else knows how to operate it. In addition, I've discovered maintenance sometimes doesn't know how the system operates, and I think having a training for them on how to maintain and keep track of the upkeep for the greenhouse, I think is a really critical component also. Next slide. So the cost breakdown. We kind of just broke it up into two parts. So the external new covering is just shy of $26,000. The internals, the more expensive component, so the new climate control system, the irrigation system, propagation system, trainings, maintenance of some of the parts that are in the greenhouse need a little work. They don't need to be replaced, but they need some maintenance. So having somebody who really knows what they're doing, kind of get everything operating and working well is great. So the total cost is $75,500-ish. Bids aren't necessary for this project since the greenhouse manufacturer is on the TIPS list. In addition, most of these educational greenhouse suppliers are pretty regional. There's really only one per region. So I don't think we want to bring somebody here from Georgia. Stuppy is out of Kansas City. So currently the renovation is expected to be funded through current building budget and CTE funding. So what does this mean? More class time can be used for instruction and projects if students are not using class time watering plants. Students should be able to provide a better product during our sales if we actually have a greenhouse that we can control the climate in. There's the potential for students to grow crops for the community and other school improvement projects. So I have been approached several times in the past year to if the high school greenhouse can provide plants, grow plants for various community service projects. I didn't feel comfortable doing that last year, given the state of the greenhouse and the type of product that we would have potentially been able to provide. So students also would have a better understanding of how an actual greenhouse in the industry operates, if the greenhouse is more up to speed. A couple additional things that I didn't include on here. I was approached by the Life Skills program, and we're now talking about how can we incorporate some of those life skills students into the greenhouse and utilize that space for those students. There's also greater capacity for student involvement if everything is operating efficiently. So with that, any questions?
What questions do we have?
I love this project. I love anything that gives kids like real hands-on experience. So I think the only question I have is, what is the timing of getting these repairs done? Would it be immediate or would it be next summer? How might it impact the curriculum?
As far as I know, last I talked with Stuppy, which was about a month ago, they were able to get us on November, or October. Now we're probably pushed out to November if we can schedule it on, at least the interior work could be done if the exterior work had to be pushed to spring. We get warm days in November, because I didn't talk to them about how long, but looking at the structure, it can't take more than really a day to really pull off the walls and roof, and they just screw on and off. So.
Yeah. We've explored this before, but the dollar amount was just a little bit out of our range. And then, with Brenda not being in the building until this last year, trying to, do we spend the money on something like that when we don't necessarily maybe have staffing to cover things, but we're staffed now appropriately for that. And honestly, I think, if we were to get this going, I do think it could get done before December. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this fall. So.
Well, plants are very in right now. So very, very exciting. I think this is so awesome, and the many, many opportunities in different areas of the community and our students and our faculty and everybody they can affect. I think it's really awesome. I'm so excited for you.
I second all of that. Brenda, I love your enthusiasm. We're lucky to have you at Emporia High. One quick question, just because you said when you just had the 4 students that sold the plants and it raised 14, so when you raised that 1,400, did that help at all going back into buying some things you needed, or?
So the plan to use the funding is for the Greenhouse Club. Those funds will go now into the Greenhouse Club. And so the school wouldn't be providing plant starts and potting soil. It would be sort of a self-sustaining fund.
That's kind of one of the things I wondered about, but
Yep.
like Leslie said, that sounds so ridiculous because plants have been around forever since the dawn of mankind. But they are, and there's a lot of health benefits to them too. And so obviously a lot of us care about that. And so, yeah, this is exciting. Just the fact that students want to know how things are grown and thrive, and I mean, that's just an exciting thing. It's a hands-on thing. It's a life skill that is very, very needed as a whole for society. So this
Absolutely. And, you know, on top of just learning how to care for something,
Yes.
I think that's a great skill that they learn. But there's something about working with plants. It's calming, it's sort of meditative, and I think a lot of students, I know my greenhouse students love that time. They come into my class and they're like, oh, we get to just sort of decompress. Sometimes we got to learn about like greenhouse structures, but other times they're like, oh, okay, so we've got some time to work with the actual plants, whether it's pest control or even just watering. There's something meditative about it, and it just makes them calmer, and you're more grounded.
I do feel this is a significant investment, but I feel like no matter where somebody stands, I think this is viewed as a very positive thing, and I could see the community really, really getting behind this as it does grow in terms of the amount of students and the opportunities and maybe even what they go into. We need botanists, so what they choose to go into. So I just think, again, get it to where it needs to be, and I think it can grow and a lot of positive things come from it.
Absolutely. Our limited number of students has to do with, they've got to have 2 classes
Right.
before they take
Yeah.
greenhouse management, so we've kind of build the base. And I think that's really where, there were 40 freshmen interested in this club. Not all of them have showed up, but, you know, didn't really expect 40 to show up. I would have been a little overwhelmed if 40 had shown up the very first day. But I think that speaks volumes that there's that interest. Some of it was scheduling, et cetera, so.
Yeah, I just want to celebrate this. This is pretty amazing. I wish we had things like this when I was in high school, because we didn't have pathways and greenhouses and all these different clubs, and it just seems extraordinary, and an extraordinary opportunity. My only request is that maybe in the spring, when the greenhouse is really cooking, that maybe the board members could have a field trip and see it. I would be up for a field trip.
You are all welcome to show up.
She'll put you to work, though.
Yeah, you might have to water something or prune some leaves.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the $75,550.25 cost of proposed upgrades to the EHS greenhouse as submitted.
Second that.
Okay, great, thank you. There's been a motion and a second.
Thank you so much.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, great. I'm so excited for this. All right, our next item is the Boys and Girls Club of South Central Kansas update.
We have Ms. Megan McClellan, Chief Operating Officer of Boys and Girls Club, and Ms. Whitney Johnson, Area Director, here to present. Oh, and Pam's going to do some introduction.
I just want to share really quick that Whitney is a parent in the district. I didn't know if she wanted to share that. So it's exciting to have one of our supervisors here that's in our district that also have kids there. And then Megan has worked very closely with the district, and she's a regional. I can call her at any time, at pretty much any time of the day, right? So, but I just want to say I appreciate both of them with supporting the program for the district, so.
Good evening. Thank you guys for allowing us to have some time here tonight to provide you guys with a little bit of an update on our programs within the district, but just our partnership in general. So I wanted to just kind of start off. I know that we've been here before and have presented, and we've been here for a few years now, but for anyone in the room who may not be as familiar, so Boys and Girls Clubs of South Central Kansas is an affiliate of Boys and Girls Clubs of America, which means we are our own 501c3, but we share in the same mission. So our mission is to enable all people, especially those who need us most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible citizens. And our vision is to provide every child in the greater South Central region, with access to our club resources so each child is inspired and empowered to plan for life after high school. So I think historically, Boys and Girls Clubs have kind of been known for really focusing on serving low-income communities, low-income families, but I think that we are all aware that post-COVID especially, that there's so many more needs for our kids, especially in the mental health area, and it may not even be associated with low-income families, right? So our ultimate goal is we really are trying to make sure that we're serving all kids who need us most, so. And the way that we do this is through what we call our formula for impact. So this is kind of like a logic model. We call it our bread and butter. But basically, when you take those kids who need us most and you combine that with our outcome-driven club experience, which means that we're providing them with our targeted programs, that's kind of like a curriculum. You're giving them the high-yield learning activities. We call that fun with a purpose. You're giving them what we call our 5 key elements, so making sure that they feel safe and they're in a supportive environment, that they're building supportive relationships, that they're receiving recognition, that they've got opportunities and expectations. When you have all of those things together and making sure that they are coming on a regular basis, then we're really able to see those priority outcome areas. So these 4 that are highlighted here are really what we strive to meet when we're doing programs with our kids. When we're facilitating activities, we really try to make sure that anything that we're offering our kids is hitting one of these 4 core areas. So that academic success piece is really important, obviously. So with that academic enrichment, through the homework help, we also make sure that they have physical activity, that they're doing like things that are structured, obviously, getting them some, teamwork skills and things, but we're keeping them active. We're keeping them paying attention to their social emotional everything that's going on with that area, and healthy eating, good character and citizenship. We really focused a lot this last year on leadership development, trying to get them exposed to community service pieces. And then new this year is the workforce development piece. So we know that a lot of times we focus that more on like middle school, high school, but we really do try to make sure that the activities we provide kind of builds that connection early on so that they can kind of connect the dots and start thinking through some of those things with the activities we provide. So I wanted to just kind of give a little bit of history. I'm not going to spend very much time on this, but just from a local level. So Boys and Girls Clubs of South Central Kansas, we've been in operation since 1990. And it wasn't until 2019 when our current CEO came in that she really worked with our board of directors and they really focused on growth. The board of directors really wanted to make sure that we were trying to get our services in as many hands of those outside of just Wichita, that really needed the support and services. So you can see that in 2022 is when we really started to grow, and we opened sites in Mays and in Derby and here in Emporia as well. So we grew from serving 2 locations in Wichita to then serving 16 sites over Wichita and then in the Emporia community as well. So serving here in Emporia, so we started 2 years ago. So we started the school year 22-23. And we provide after-school services in 6 of the elementary sites. So we target the kindergarten through 5th grade. We provide after-school services directly after school until 6 o'clock, and then we also provide summer programs. And so at that point, we're open from 7:30 to 5:30. And so we offer both of those for the kids in the Emporia district. And all of our sites are licensed through the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. So we're considered a school-age drop-in program, which is a little bit different to some. Some of our regulations are just a little bit different with that drop-in program. But I did provide some data here so that you guys could see some just comparative numbers of what it looked like when we started our program in the school year 22-23, as well as last year's numbers. So in total, we served 491 in the first school year, 22-23, and then we served 455 in 23-24. Okay, so I wanted to share some photos because I think it's always just fun to be able to see kind of what the kids are doing in our program. So again, these are from school year. You can see that we do a lot of STEM activities. You can see we have the fun with the purpose with the girls and the little coats down there. And then we also had someone come in from ESU last year that helped us with the solar eclipse. So we do a lot of partner engagement. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of a vision, if you haven't been into any of our after-school programs, to just kind of see some of the fun that our kids do in their time with us. So, all right, so a little bit more information. employ both full-time and part-time staff. So we focus on ratios of 1 to 20, so that's just to make sure that we're keeping a safe environment for kids. So we could have anywhere between 25 to 35 part-time staff employed at a time, and we focus on their adults. Like I said, they're over the age of 18. A lot of our part-time staff come from ESU, pretty much all of them. We do have a few paras that we employ, but a lot of them are those college kids. And so as part of our membership requirements to be an affiliate of Boys and Girls Clubs of America, as well as KDHE, they are required to go through background checks. They have to be fingerprinted to be able to be on the floor with kids. So, and then our full-time staff, we have one at each of our elementary sites, and they really focus a lot on building those relationships with the school day teachers, the administration, making sure that we're, communicating if, little Johnny's having a bad day and they can continue, like, what worked for him, during the school day that we can then take over into our after-school program. And, Johnny last night had a really bad day, so I just want to make sure you're aware the next morning. And, really trying to make sure that we're having that seamless transition between school day and into our programs. And it also allows us to understand more about what's being taught during the school day so that we can incorporate some of those things through our academic enrichment time after school. So, being able to help with math flashcards or with spelling review or any of those kinds of things. So it's a really good strategy for us to say. We like to call it like it's a little beautiful marriage. So we want to make sure that we're being good partners in that regard. So here with the average daily attendance, I wanted to include this data, and again, we're looking at 22 to 23 and then 23 to 24. We know that there's a lot of different variables that go into attendance of kids, right? Everyone's got after-school sports and different things. Mom and dad just are on a busy schedule, and so they've got to get picked up really quickly. But we really want to, this is kind of our data point, that if we really want to have an impact on those priority outcome areas, then we want the attendance to be consistent and to be frequent. And so we look at that average daily attendance. If we look at those pieces, we really want to see a 75% average daily attendance. What's neat here is that if you can see that 5 out of 6 elementary sites increased this last year versus the year prior. And Logan was in the running. They increased from 60% to 85%. So I think that that's just really good data to be able to see that kids, want to be in our programs. It's always awesome whenever, mom's picking up too early and they get in trouble and, they want to stay later. And so being able to hear those stories is always really, really good. So. These are just some more pictures that I wanted to include. This is from our summer program. So over the summer, we partnered with more than 20 community organizations or companies or, outside groups that we were able to do field trips. A lot of them came into our site and were able to facilitate programs with kids. But it really just gets them an opportunity to be out in the community, engaging with people. I think that one of the things that we pride ourselves a lot on is the fact that a lot of these kids may not even know that some of these things exist, right? So it's really getting them to have these experiences and be able to participate in these different things during those summer months. A few that I just wanted to point out, we worked a lot with the Emporia Library. We worked with the Pickleball Club. Los Puentes was a big partner of ours, various departments with the ESU. So we're excited for what those partnerships will look like coming into this next year. This current year. Okay, so then this last kind of data point that I wanted to focus on is just some of the changes that we've had this current year. So historically, for kids to participate in our program, they've had a one-time membership fee that would cover the entire year. And we were really able to do that because of a lot of the grant funding dollars that we were receiving those first 2 years. So some of that was through the ESSER dollars, which was phenomenal in terms of being able to help us get our startup. We also had some other post-COVID money that came in that was able to help offset some of those costs as well. But since a lot of those dollars have diminished, unfortunately, we did have to make some changes to make sure that we have a good diversification of revenue. Obviously, we're continuing to work, with other resources within the Emporia community, but we did have to incorporate an additional registration process that was new this year. So any family who registers for our program, so they have to purchase a membership, and that membership is $50. And if they qualify for state insurance, then that membership waives. So, and then there's an additional registration fee that is monthly, and if they qualify based on HHS poverty guidelines, then that, they receive a scholarship so that is cut to 50% fee every month. So, like I said, we are really striving towards the sustainability of the program. The last thing that we want to do is not be able to serve the Emporia community. And so we just have to look at our different ways of how can we function as a business, how can we continue to pay our staff to be here to provide that quality and safe environment. We do pay at a competitive rate, which we have to be able to get those quality staff. And so it's just some of those different strategies that we have to look at as part of this process. So here I have also provided some year-to-date membership information as well as same time last year. So same time last year is in that dark blue, current year-to-date is in the light blue. There are some increases and there's also some declines in some schools. Ultimately, when you're looking at the total number, we're about off by like 5. So the one thing that I was looking at, if you look at this year to like right now information, this point in time compared to total served in the previous year, there was about 150 difference. So we're still early in enrollment. We still have plenty of time to be able to increase those numbers, see that increase. And I know that like William Allen White, for example, when they started at this point last year, they had 33 kids and they went up to 67. So there's still a lot of room for growth there. And then we also have our own internal plans for how we're gonna be able to more strategically outreach to families who need us most. Because in the past, the last 2 years, we've been so focused on having staff to be able to serve the kids. And this year, we're fortunate that we've built a solid foundation there, that we've got good quality staff, and we can spend our efforts now on making sure that we're really hitting and targeting those kids that need us the most. So I mentioned program sustainability a couple of times. That is really, really important for us. And so a couple of things that I wanted to discuss as part of this effort is the first one is recruitment. We are trying to get Emporia representation on our board of directors. So if there is anybody that you might know that would be passionate about serving in this capacity, I would love for us to be able to make the connection. You know, someone who is the connector in the Emporia community, who can be that resource, who can, you know, drive us to different, you know, grants that are available or whatever the situation is. We really want to have Emporia represented on our board of directors. But then we also have opportunities that if someone does not want to take on a commitment like that, that you could also serve on our committees, their board-led committees. And so one is, you know, on program and safety, making sure that you're helping us with observations, making sure that we're doing what we say we do, right? Going in and just making sure that kids are having a good time, that they're having a safe time. We also have an HR committee, and then we also have a fund development and marketing committee. So obviously, that one speaks for itself. They would be helping us to make sure that we can continue that sustainability here. Community outreach, we're going to continue. I really give a big shout out to Whitney in this area because she has done a phenomenal job here in Emporia this last year. So Whitney started with us in September. Could you just hit your 1 year? So she has done a really good job of increasing our outreach into the community, bringing partners and connecting them with us. And so we want to continue to do that. We want to strengthen those current partnerships. We want to find new partnerships and really make sure that we're utilizing the expertise of the Emporia community. You know, we have our area of expertise, but we're not experts in everything. And so we want to make sure that we're using the people, the resources that we have available to us so that they can come in and not even just for our kids, but also for our staff. An example that I look at this is even just a recent partnership that we're, you know, doing with the district is working with their behavior interventionist. So having her come in and talk to us and our staff and train so that there's some consistency between, again, the school day and what and how we interact with kids after school. And so what other resources are there in the Emporia community where we can be doing that? And then lastly, that fund development piece. So like I said, you know, we had a lot of resources available to us these last couple of years for the post-COVID money, and it was amazing, right? We were able to come in, we were able to start these programs, and we still do have grant dollars at a federal level that we get from our Kansas State Alliance, so that's helpful, but we want to make sure that, like I said, that we're sustainable. So those dollars, you know, covered a percentage of our expenses, and I think that one of the questions that we're asked often is, you know, your headquarters is in Wichita, where does the money go, right? So our programs only function if we have quality staff. It is a very staff-heavy program. And so dollars that are raised here stay here. They have to pay for the staff that are here. So the budget that we have for Emporia doesn't even include the shared services that we, like my position, HR, finance, all of those things, doesn't even include those. So we really make sure that those dollars are staying here in the Emporia community. Okay, so lastly, I just want to say thank you. We very much appreciate the partnership that we have with the district. It has been a great experience. We appreciate the ESSER money that was provided to us to be able to start up these programs. We're excited to be able to continue the partnership and really looking forward to working through that together. So I invite you to come and see our programs in person. I would love additional conversations to talk about how, we can get connected in the community a little bit more, because I want to make sure that this is something that we can sustain long-term. I said last thing, but I lied. So last thing I want to say is I do have a testimony from a parent over at Walnut that I wanted to share before I open it up for questions. So I am going to change this student's name to Charlie. So this parent from Walnut said, I enrolled my youngest, Charlie, in the Boys and Girls Club summer program while I adjusted to being a single, full-time working mom. The program exceeded my expectations and alleviated my guilt about not being as present as I used to be. Charlie's summer experience was so positive that I enrolled him in the after-school program, which solved our transportation issues and reduced conflicts at home. The staff's genuine care and encouragement have significantly boosted Charlie's confidence and interest, especially in activities like pickleball, disc golf, and soccer. I appreciate their efforts to keep me informed and ease my worries, and knowing Charlie is in a supportive environment has been a huge relief during our family's transition. So with that, I welcome you to ask any questions.
Well, thank you for coming and for having such a well-prepared presentation. I did have some questions about the fee structure for families, just to make sure I understand it. So if I misstate the way it works, please correct me. I will take no offense.
Sure.
So there's a required annual membership. So if I'm a family and my kid's involved in this, I pay an annual membership, right?
Correct.
And then to be involved in the programs for the services, I pay an extra fee, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so how much is an annual membership?
$50.
And then the program registration, how much is that?
It's $60 per month.
Okay, per month.
Per month.
And
And then
so-
if they qualify for a scholarship, then that's reduced to $30.
Right. And so then I wanted to ask, because down below on your slide, it says that those who qualify for state insurance will pay $0 for their membership fee, and those who qualify for a scholarship will receive 50% off their monthly program registration. So if you are on state insurance and CanCare, you pay $0 for the membership fee, but you still have to pay the $60 a month program fee.
No. So
Okay.
if you have state insurance, then that $50 membership would be waived.
Okay.
And then if you also qualify for the scholarship, then you would still you would receive that $30 monthly fee instead of the $60.
Okay, I understand. Okay. And the fees now are 50 and 60. Are those planning on being increased next year?
So there is a gradual adjustment over the next 3 years. So that information was communicated to all families at the start of the school year. So we wanted to make sure that we were being proactive in that communication to not only allow families to plan, but for the district to be able to, be informed of that as well.
So right now, we're on the lower end of the three-year scale. What is the top when we actually get
So
get to
year
the
one
top?
is $60, year two is $80, year three is $100. So then, and the scholarship would always cut that at 50%.
Okay. And I will yield to my fellow board members for now. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation. What was the fee last year?
I'm sorry?
What was the monthly fee last year?
There was not a monthly fee last year. It was just the annual membership fee.
And I think one of the things that I'm concerned about that I've heard from a lot of parents is like you have this amazing mission and you have these great programs and now they're priced out of attending. And that is hard for me as a school board member because I feel like we have a moral imperative to provide care for our families,
Sure.
after school as well.
Sure.
And so I just wonder what could we do as a board? But more than that, I think there are too many families that even when you do offer some sort of scholarships or financial assistance, there's still too many families just in that middle where they don't qualify for any aid and they can't afford any aid. So how do you bring them into your program?
Sure. First, I will say that this was an extremely hard decision to have to make, because nobody wants to have to increase, especially by that much, right? So our goal was to make sure that this was going to still remain affordable, but then also looking at it from a business perspective. Because like I said, we don't want to pull out of this, out of the school district because of not being able to sustain what we have. And that's what a lot of programs, I feel like, especially in the after-school program realm, when you have 21 CLC funding and things where they don't allow you to charge anything, then you get to this point where that money is up and you might be flopping. Like, it's really important to us that we don't do that. So our goal is, and this is what we have been talking about here recently, is being able to see what community partners we could be working with in these situations. Like, for example, I know Whitney had someone reach out to her to say, like, you know, what does this look like if I wanted to sponsor fees? You know, being able to have some of those internal conversations to see, as a partner, who can we be working with within the Emporia, you know, community who would want to work with us in these efforts. I think for us, we have, kind of like what I was mentioning before, the last couple of years, we've waited for parents and families to come to us, right? Because we were focused so much on having staffing and training and all of those things. And so now we're in a position where we can have those more intentional conversations with community partners to say, okay, how can we serve your kids? You know, we know that there might be a gap here. We've been working really hard on trying to make sure that we're, you know, overcoming like the language barriers. But how can we be more proactive in connecting to these families and making sure that we are striving to meet those needs of those who really do need us most? So if it comes to, you know, situations where we can have those conversations of what does this look like, then we're definitely we're open to that. So that's what we have to work through it, right? So some of that is like we don't know until we get into a situation. I think that our end numbers that we see at the end of this year will be very telling, because right now we're still very early on. So a lot of the feedback that I feel like that we received has alleviated a lot, just because it's, you know, it was shocking. I mean, it was shocking. So once families understand and things like that, we've had a lot more that are more understanding of it. And so we haven't received that feedback here recently as much, nearly at all. So I think it will be interesting to see where our numbers hit at the end of this academic year to be able to compare to this last year.
I have another question, kind of a follow-up to some of what I asked before. These fees, are they uniform for all?
Yes.
All across the state, so it's not just Emporia specific?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, not to like harp on the fees, but I have additional questions about the fees. So basically, by the end of this 3-year period, the price has effectively doubled for our families from where we are now.
From 60 to 100.
Mm-hmm. So what's the ceiling? Like, are we done at 3 years, or are we coming in year 4 and now it's $120 a month?
I don't know that I would be able to answer that question at this time. That's not what we want to see by any means. I would hope not. But me, as wanting to be transparent in those conversations, I specifically was the one that said, if this is something that we think that we're going to see with an increase, I want to have that information now and communicate that now. I don't want to continue to have you know, it comes to July and we're increasing again, and then it's just coming to July and we're increasing again. So I understand that we as an organization have to work through what that process looks like for us, and we have to work through what sustainability looks like for us. I wanted to be as transparent as we could at the very beginning to understand that this is what this could look like. I honestly can't give you an answer on what that's going to look like after the 4th year, but our goal would be to not, I mean, our goal would, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just kind of hard, right? Because I totally see where you all are coming from on the side of transparency, and you have a business to run as well, but I feel like I know our families pretty well, and that continuing to increase the cost basically with no limit from what they were experiencing, I feel like does them a disservice as well.
I had some questions, and you've answered the first one kind of on staffing, because sometimes that's hard across the community, but I know for part-time staff, you're using a lot of Emporia State students, and you said this year's working out pretty well. You're pretty fully staffed and
Yes.
so forth?
Yes, we've been very fortunate to retain a lot of our staff. So we've got some that have been with us the full 2 years. And so that's one of our things that we focus on, obviously, is making sure that we're providing our staff with the training and skill development that they need and that they enjoy their jobs to want to stay with us. And so we've been fortunate to retain a lot of our staff. And then I think just getting our name out there and partnering with ESU, we've had a lot more who have, like we actually have some that are just kind of in, standstill right now because we've got more than what we really need yet on just because of ratios. And so it's been nice to not have to be worried about that piece.
That's good, good. How are you marketing to parents? How are you letting them know about the program?
So we have worked through Lindell a lot in terms of communicating out via email, social media, some of those things. I was recently on one of the podcasts with Dr. Harder, and we also have, it helps to have our full-time staff that are in the schools because they can be making those relationships with the parents as well. So they're at back-to-school nights, any of those kinds of events that they can participate in. We have just really strong connections, I guess, at that local level. And then we communicate ourselves as well through any of our our previous enrolled families. We communicate that way as well.
Okay. One more thing. So activities for children, and I know it's after school, but what kind of guidelines do you have for academic versus recreational in the time that the child's there? How do you make sure that there's some academics and some recreational type
Sure.
thing?
So we have, every day they're receiving academic support. So right after school, they have a snack, and then they receive that time where they can either work on homework if they have it, which we know that a lot of elementary students, it's pretty rare to, sometimes have homework at that level, especially those younger kids. But we still want that time to be focused on the enrichment piece and the tutoring piece. And so we have that time set aside every day. So if there's not homework that needs to be complete, then like I said, we'll work with them on, their reading or practicing their spelling words or math things. But a lot of times we try to really make it fun. So, doing spelling relay races or something like that so that it's something that they're not, doesn't feel like a extension of the school day necessarily. We try to put the fun spin on it so that it doesn't seem like, we're sneaking it in there. So, but they get it every day.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I have an additional question back on the fees. So how is this level of fee structure determined? I know that in previous conversations or communications, there was a discussion about what other local area Boys and Girls Clubs were charging. So how did you all come up with this fee structure?
Well, this fee structure, this is what we felt like was going to be manageable for families. So I did do that comparison. And in 2 of the neighboring locations that are in Kansas, one charges $190 a month and one charges $160 a month. So we felt like we were coming in significantly lower than those, and some of them even have weekly fees. So we did not want to completely turn everything on its head. We instituted a monthly fee that we felt like was reasonable. Because we don't want to become a program that is not serving families. That's not our goal. Our goal is to be accessed by everyone, but we also have to operate as a business. So,
Are there any districts that are lower than Emporia's fees, whether monthly or annualized?
I don't think in Kansas. I don't know in comparison. Is that what you're asking? It's just in Kansas or like everywhere? I don't think so. But I could look into that just to make sure and verify and follow up.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I think for me, I'm still just really struggling about the things that we talk about at this board table, and so much is about how we can help our students be successful, and that's also about helping families be successful. And, having access to quality care after school is so important in this discussion. And it just doesn't sit well with me that when I look at slide 9, if you wanted to put that back up, Casey, sorry. I'm looking at Logan, I'm looking at Riverside, I'm looking at William Allen White, and I just see like really low enrollment, and I see that when you do the year-to-year comparison for where we are now, like I'm mindful of those schools having lower enrollment. It might not seem significant, but when you see compared to Timmerman, Village, and Walnut. It is significant, and I'm just worried about the disparities of offering a program where not all of our students can take advantage of it. And I just feel like we need to do something. I don't know what that is, but we've got to help offset these expenses for families so their kids can be successful, so parents can work. I understand your need to increase the fees, but I also don't think that kids should be left out of such an important program.
Sure, and I appreciate that feedback, and that is definitely something that we're mindful of as well. And I've even was having conversations with Whitney and Esteban, who's our unit director over at Riverside, and he gave some very insightful information in terms of just the demographics of the parents of those buildings. You know, a lot of them are factory workers, so a lot of them get off at 3 o'clock and they may not necessarily need the care. You know, some of our buildings have 2-parent households, but only one parent works, and so one parent can be at home. And so I think there's a lot of different scenarios. We can't, I don't feel like I can put my finger on saying that our fees are the only thing that is impacting our families having access to our programs, which is why I would like to be more intentional with working with our community partners, right? So Crosswinds, some of those other groups that may have access to those families and say, Johnny really needs to be connected to your program. How can we make this work? So that's where we want to have those more intentional conversations, because sometimes I feel like it can be hard with working with some of those parents who maybe aren't actively seeking us out, and we don't necessarily know yet that they need that care. We've got to work with the schools, and we've got to work with those community partners to be able to strategically reach those.
I think Jamie said more eloquently than I possibly could what my concerns are with what's happened here. You know, what worries me is the students who, because of the fees, and the financial cost and the staggering increase of that cost, aren't in the programs now, who aren't having the opportunities that they otherwise were able to engage in, who aren't socializing or, you know, building their vocabulary, especially if they're young. But Dr. Harder, I had a question for you. When we did Rec Extra, how much did that cost families, if at anything? What was the cost associated with that? And I realize that's a while back.
We'd have to, we had that discussion. I mean, the district was paying $250,000 to $300,000 to subsidize. So, I mean, that, if we did that, I mean, that's something that we could look at Boys and Girls Club, but the other piece of that is that when we went with Boys and Girls Club, I mean, there was a fee that was charged and there was a sliding scale. I'd have to go back and get that, and I can get that information and bring that back.
At some point, that might be helpful for us
Right.
to
But
contextualize.
yes, but the goal was to have that self-sustaining. And so, and I know that they've applied for grants and they haven't always been successful, but I'm also thinking about a board of directors member that could help write grants. That would be helpful as well. So.
In terms of the cost the district has with this program, do we have a dollar figure for that?
So we are not paying anything into Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
I mean, that was the goal, is that we were very lucky to have ESSERs, that we were able to provide that, and then, but then the goal was that they would be self-sustaining, so.
Right.
And I know that they didn't want to add the fees, but also when we were looking at the other comparisons of other districts that have used Boys and Girls Club, they were having more feedback. And when we talked about this at Coney Monday afternoon, we were asking staff members if they had heard anything. And so one of our members had said that she had heard some things at the middle school at the beginning, well, really read more on social media, but has not heard anything. And so we try to stay connected with our staff to talk to parents. And I'm thinking, too, that as parent-teacher conferences are coming up, we could also talk with parents and see what might be some obstacles. And that might be even maybe a safer environment that we can talk to every parent and kind of check in, especially with the elementary. Because it's not the elementary, I want to be clear, elementary parents are usually more comfortable talking with teachers, and we usually have great attendance, so usually we aim for that 100%, so we have some contact with parents one way or the other.
I mean, I definitely remember the glory days of ESSER funding, like being everywhere, so that was really exciting. And I think, you know, when we talked about this a few years ago, it seemed like a really great decision. We had the ESSER money. It wasn't going to cost us anything. And maybe that's just something we need to revisit as a school district. If we really want to prioritize academics and quality care, maybe we need to think more deeply about our own investment as a district into after-school care in whatever form it is.
The only question I have this evening is, thank you for your presentation, is sometimes when you have more kids participating, it costs less money. But I know that you have to have so many, adult to child ratio. But would that be a case for us if we were marketing it better and we were able to sell it, that next year it might cost less if we have more kids participating? Is that a thing, or am I'm reaching?
It's good effort. I don't think so, because just like what you said, we'd have to have more staff as part of that. So I think it'd kind of wash. Okay. I'm so sorry. So I am a district parent as well as working as the area director for Boys and Girls Club. So I feel like I can come into this with a very unique perspective. And I will say that these last 2 years, when my kids were part of the program and I wasn't a part of it, we got to hear about all sorts of, different activities that they were involved in, different experiences that they were starting to get. And then when I came into the program last fall, I became the area director in December. And then in this last 8 months especially, we have really focused on developing our program activities, on making sure that, hey, if these kids are here after school because their parents are working, they're going to be getting something quality out of this. They're not going to feel like it's a punishment or a torture, system, because you'll be surprised how many of them will tell you that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, all in all, I understand, the fee structure, yes, it was a shock to us all. Trust me, I pay for my kids to attend the programs that I help create. I will happily do it because I also know what they're getting out of it, what our directors are being able to provide, and then through all the extra training that we are starting to really be able to bring to our part-time and full-time staff, we're giving them all of those tools to be successful, even if, we have to build up on this outreach portion. But there are certain, I would say, areas that we have to focus on and build up before we can really incorporate everything. So this year, my main focus is training and staff development, making sure that we can get everybody up to par, they're all feeling supported and capable, so that when our kids come to programs, they're excited to learn, they're excited to be there, and they're leaving with something that happened, oh my gosh, I don't want to leave yet, Mom, because we're learning about this. We made chalk bombs, anything, everything. We want them to have those experiences and those new things on their table. Moving forward, because we do understand this as a big deal, budget-wise, for families, there's been a lot of conversation about how do we move forward with that? How does, those community partners that want to make that difference, how can we get them involved so that they can help cover prices or provide scholarships, things like that. So I don't want it to go unnoticed that we are making the effort to try to find a way to find those solutions for those those lower income families or those families who have that middle income level where, $60 a month is a big deal. So I just, as a parent, all of it, I just wanted to say it. I'm sorry, I had my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I'll say, as I feel like we're kind of wrapping up on this item, that I think we all know that the work you do is so important, and that we're asking all these questions about fees because we care about what's best for our students and for the families in the community. And because we care so much about the fees, we also recognize that you all provide a really great service. And so I think at least for me, it's about finding a happy medium in there. So thank you for entertaining all of our questions.
No, we appreciate the questions, and thank you for the feedback, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Okay, we are on to item 9A, district highlights.
Okay, well, we mentioned K-12 finalists, Shelley Sparks and Andy Hawley, who was here earlier, and then this afternoon, our master teacher nominee was announced at Riverside, Kelly Olson. So it has been a really fun day. Also want to highlight, and we're talking about awards, Lillian Lingenfelter, Burlington teacher and our board president, and then Tabitha Granado, who I happened to see yesterday afternoon, our Timmerman special education teacher. They attended the award ceremony for the Kansas Department of Commerce's Education K-12 Next Gen Under 30 winners. So congratulations again. Yeah. While we were at the middle school library, we went to Timmerman, then we went to the middle school. I was talking a little bit to Misty Lawson, and so she was talking about the growth that has been happening in the library. So they've been opening the library before school, and she said they tried to take roll, and it wasn't really working very well, but it went from 30 to 60, and so about an average of 65 students. So every seat is filled, and so while they're in there, she says they're focusing. Every once in a while they have to be reminded to kind of quiet down, but then they're checking out books, but then she's also doing some lessons and some games on William Allen White Children's Book Awards. So let's see here, they've got some different ceremony activities, and they do little different kinds of quizzes, so lots of really cool things, and those are kids that just want to come to the library. Yesterday afternoon, went to watch the 7th and 8th grade volleyball, and I was thinking that, well, this is the second time that we've used this for volleyball, and nope, it was basketball. Our 8th grade basketball team was the first one, so that's the first time that we've had our volleyball teams on there. So they were playing the entire court, so we had both courts set up for the volleyball, and they're going to host a 7th grade tournament this weekend, so lots of excitement. The other thing that was cool was that typically 7th grade and 8th grade teams will travel separately, but they've been working with different schools, and McPherson was one of them last night, where they'll bring both of the teams so they can both play, so that's very exciting. And then I'm super excited about this next part. So the KSB convention, so it was suggested last year that we apply for the district showcase during the KSB convention. So I met with Josh Pavlik, who's the high school department head of art. Found out today that we are in. So we have a student presentation. We'll have up to 2 teachers and up to 6 students to attend and showcase their work on that Friday, November 15th, and they will be in the Century 2 Expo Hall, 10 o'clock a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m., and they'll be doing demonstrations and then explaining what they're doing to people who come by and check out the booth. So really, really excited about that. That's all I have.
Okay, board reports. Do we have, oh wait, before we go on to board reports, just one other shout out to our Teacher of the Year nominees and our Master Teacher. Okay, board reports. The Rec Commission.
So I don't have a report for the Rec Commission. Our next meeting should be the 3rd Monday of this month. So I'll have a report after that. We will have a special meeting tomorrow for an executive session. I don't anticipate action being taken. It'll be by Zoom. One thing I did want to bring up, though, is that there's going to be a community workshop at the Rec Center on the 17th. And I have to look at my phone to see the time. But it's going to be in the evening. From 5 to 7:30 p.m. in the gym. We will have hot dogs and food and beverages, and that's going to be an opportunity for people in the community to come talk to us, the members of the steering committee, if they're able to make it, and the rec center staff about their input on the new facility that is being worked on. Location has been a big topic now, so that's going to be a good opportunity for people to come and be a part of that. That's it for the rec.
Thanks, Jeremy. Wellness Committee?
Yes, we met for an hour before this meeting, so I've been here a while. But we had a great meeting, and Heather Cole is she's in charge of the wellness, and we just went over all of the committee member responsibilities and expectations. Heather let us know we have 512 enrolled as of right now, and that is a record number involved in the wellness program. And still going to try to get even more. They're allowed to join throughout the school year. But yeah, we just basically went over all of the important dates for the wellness program, all important deadlines, so everybody's kind of on the same page, and different incentives, because those are always fun and popular, so we went over those. And then shameless plug right here, but she always lets them know, and the reps let each building know that the community health fair at the mall is on October 19th this year. My students have a big part in that. Healthier Lyon County has a big part in that, so 9 to noon. And my football players usually miss out on that, but Jared said that's their bye week. There's not a game. That's the first time that's ever happened. So my football players will get to be a part of the health fair this year. So anyway, we're excited for that, and it was a great meeting.
And I did have a Tech College Board meeting on Monday. That's okay. It was just a regular old meeting. Mandy Steffes agreed to be our board vice chair, which is nice. We didn't have that position filled. We are looking to still fill our one last remaining board member position, but we have a great candidate in mind. And we had a really great presentation from the early childhood education program, and they have tripled their numbers this year from last year. And just lots of really great information to share about all the things they're doing to help childcare providers and to get more people involved in early childhood education, and how many of those people are ending up as paras for us and working at Jones and in different facilities. So that I just love that collaboration. It was a nice meeting.
Okay. Item 11A, the executive session.
I move to enter executive session for 10 minutes to discuss confidential student information pursuant to the exception relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting a student under coma. Superintendent Allison Harder and Director of Assessments and Accountability, Dr. Ryan Cargila, are invited to join the session. KASB Attorney Luke Soba is also invited and will be available by phone if needed. We will return to session at 8 o'clock.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
I move that we enter executive session for 15 minutes to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interest of the individuals to be discussed, and to return to this room at 8:16 p.m. Superintendent Dr. Allison Harder, Director of Human Resources Jared Griffin, and Attorney Tammy Samoji are invited to join the session.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry, hold on just a second. On 11C, are we not doing that?
No action necessary.
Okay, all right. Can we go back and make them, let me think about how to put this in. Let's go ahead and vote on this one since it's open, and then let's go back and put no action on the other one.
We are returning. Okay.
Technically, we're in executive session. We can't. We're in exec session now, so we wouldn't be taking action while we're in exec session.
We haven't passed the motion yet, right?
Grant hasn't voted.
Well, even if you did, though, we'd still be in executive, even if, even if you voted no, we'd still be executive
Yeah,
session.
so vote. Whatever you want.
Okay, motion passes 7-0.
regular session.
Second.
Okay. Are you doing the next one? Okay.
Motion passes 7-0.
I move to enter an executive session for 10 minutes to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and to return to this room at 8:29 p.m. Superintendent Dr. Allison Harder, Director of Human Resources Jared Giffen, and Attorney Tammy Samoji are invited to join the session.
Second.
We'll do a hand vote, please. Motion passes 7-0.
regular session.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, before we go on to future board calendar dates, we do need to revisit item 11C. And I will take a motion on that resolution.
Motion for affirmation, right? Okay.
Yes.
I move that the Board of Education adopts Resolution 2014-14 to affirm the extended term suspension as recommended by the hearing officer and affirmed by the appellate hearing officer.
I will second, but with a friendly amendment to make it 2024-14.
Thank you.
Oh, lots of dates on here.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, that brings us to the future board calendar dates. On next Tuesday, September 17th, starting at 7:30 a.m., the Emporia Recreation Steering Committee meeting will be held here at Mary Herbert Education Center. Then, Friday, September 20th at 5 p.m., there will be the district tailgate at Emporia State University. The following Wednesday, September 25th at 6 p.m. is our regular board meeting. Emporia High School homecoming on Friday, September 27th at 6 p.m. at Emporia State University. Tuesday, October 15th at 7:30 a.m., Emporia Recreation Steering Committee meeting here. And our next regular board meeting after that will be Wednesday, October 9th, 6 p.m. here. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. I'm going to vote against it.